Hey everybody and welcome. I'm Matt, Client Success Manager at White House Custom Color, and before we start with Darren and Lisa Thompson today, we just want to fill you in on a couple things. So if you haven't subscribed to our WHCC YouTube, make sure and do that. You're going to get notified of all the fun things like this that we're doing today before they go live. There's tons of product information on there, sales ideas, details, all the fun things that you can find out on our YouTube page. Make sure and follow along on Instagram at WHCC Pro. And then also, if you want all the product details, check out WHCC.com for an awesome interactive experience on our website. And just a reminder, while we're going through our live today, if you have questions for the Thompsons, make sure and put it in the chat. We will have them answer them live on the air. And if you are watching this on the rewind or on the pre-record, make sure and put them in as well. We know how to find these guys. And if you do have questions, especially what they're going to be talking about, which is super important on the business side of photography today, put them in the chat, we'll ask and make sure and respond to you on that chat as well. So you're not here to listen to me today, so without further ado, thank you guys so much for joining us. It's an honor to have you here.
We are very excited.
Yes, and we're excited to have you. So Lisa and Darren, tell us a little bit more about yourselves, business, family, like all that stuff, so people know who they're listening to today. I mean, we have the honor of knowing you quite well, but for people that are following along that don't know you, just give us some background.
I'll do a little bit on the family side, personal side, and I'll let Lisa speak a little bit to the business side. But we're Darren and Lisa. We really were two worlds that collided. She's from the West Coast, I'm from the East Coast. It was a happenstance business trip several years ago, almost 20 years ago now.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, trip that almost didn't happen, but it's another story for another day. Is how we met. Somehow I convinced her to move to North Carolina, and kind of the rest is history, I guess, if you will. But we have 3 children. Reagan serves in the United States Air Force. 2 grandchildren with her that are 7, and they live in Texas. Okay. Our son Tate lives out in Salt Lake City, Utah. Okay. And then Landon is the 16-year-old, the last one at the house in eastern North Carolina.
That likes macaroni and cheese at 1 in the morning.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Or any time of day, really.
Yeah. Don't we all?
Absolutely,
right?
anytime.
So Lisa, fill us in on the business side of it. Tell us about the studio, what you like to photograph, all that stuff.
So we're going into our 17th year.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Yes, we moved slowly as we both had full-time jobs and other businesses that we were doing, and sort of built it slowly, part-time, and we're in our 7th year of having a studio. Okay. We did everything on location or out of our front dining room, changed into office, et cetera, for many years. So we started out with sports. We quickly, with my daughter, went into high school seniors and started that whole, really the love of it and the passion. And we still do the majority, over 50% of our business is high school seniors.
Okay, awesome.
So,
like these beautiful images that are behind us.
Yes, I know. So I have a cheer, dance, gymnastics background. Okay. So we have always done events, productions, studios, dance, that kind of thing. Anything that's creative aspect like that. We kind of always sort of like dabbled in that. Okay. And this year we did the most dance studios we've ever done. So that's going to continue. I absolutely love doing that. So
very cool. And you, the 2 of you own multiple businesses.
Correct.
So let's focus on like the studio piece of it today. Tell us about your roles and how that fits together, because I think that it's really interesting for everybody following along to know, with a husband and wife team, how that works, because it can be challenging. To live together and to work together and to make sure the responsibilities are split. Like, how do you guys do that?
We're still figuring it out.
Daily basis, it changes. So it's been a process. I definitely say the thing that we are not the best at is life balance, which is,
Okay.
I think after you get to a point where you have certain things, going well, then you have to move on to the next thing you need to work on. I definitely think for us that is the next thing we have to work on, because we are worker bees. Like we work a lot.
Yeah.
And so for us personally, we have transitioned. Like I had mentioned earlier, we definitely went from a part-time through to full-time, balancing kids growing up. They've all been in sports and athletics, so we're very an advocate of being there.
Yep.
So still doing that with our 16-year-old a lot. That's one of the biggest reasons why owning our own business is so important, because we can manage our own time. Even if it might be 15 hours a day, we can still break to go to a baseball game.
Right.
But yeah, pretty much now we've gone from Darren knowing most of the photography and doing that, and me being the creative graphic designer side,
Okay.
to I had to learn, because if I wanted to book more sessions and do more seniors when our other business was in like peak season, I was going to have to do most of that. So that was probably a good 3 or 4 years where I learned studio lighting. I learned the workings of the camera, and I now do 98% of that.
Okay.
And run the studio and have assistants and all of that. And he mostly does run the business. I kind of like to, in my own, he probably hasn't heard this before, but like I make the money for photography and he puts it in the bank. Pretty much. That's what he manages, pretty much the accounting side of it now.
Got it. Okay, so you're
That's where we're at now.
So you're the spreadsheet guy.
Yep.
No,
I'm the
both
spreadsheet. No, me. I'm the spreadsheet, because if he puts the money in the bank and does the tax side of it, I have to know exactly where I am at. So
Got it.
I might say, hey, how much is in the bank? But I really kind of know the real numbers. So
It's just
She's
you're
keeping me
double
honest.
checking.
Right.
So where do you two as a couple get your entrepreneurial spirit? Because you do, I mean, you work a lot, but it's part of it's your person. You
Yeah.
know, you're not doing it because you feel like you have to. Like you're goal oriented, you're business oriented. But where does that come from? Is it a long history within your families of that, or?
Not so much in mine. For me, I've never been asked that question really, and never really thought about it. But because I worked another career for almost 20 years for someone else before we went out on our own with these other two businesses, and I think it's, often people will always ask me, what are the pros and cons of working for yourself, and I not jokingly say health insurance is the biggest obstacle, but it's, for me, I think it boils down to the freedom. Of being able to, she talked about the work-life balance, and I look at it more so of work. I heard this from someone else in the photography industry a few years back, which is, I don't know if we can ever achieve balance truly, but the work-life integration and how those two have to work together. You try to achieve balance, but is it ever going to balance, Yeah. But anyway, for me, and I like that flexibility of, if we need to work 15 hours today because we know we've got a baseball game to go to tomorrow,
Right.
or if we need to schedule sessions heavy Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday so that we can have Saturday, Sunday off.
Right.
Just having that flexibility and having that freedom where, and the reward. We've been very blessed with both businesses. They both grew organically and slowly, like Lisa mentioned earlier, but they've both done pretty well, and I think a lot of that is, we invested the time in them, and we're reaping the rewards, and that reward, that payoff, combined with the freedom and the flexibility, for me, is kind of what drives me, and
that's what I was going to say too, is that, okay, so when you're working for somebody else, not that that's rewarding, it's rewarding, but you see the full benefit.
Yeah.
Being you work, you put in all of the thought, all of the creative, all of that, and you get to see the end result. So.
Right. And a couple of things that I want to add to that conversation, and for those of you listening along that are considering, if you are working somewhere and you want to start, it's okay to start slow.
Absolutely.
You don't have to dive headfirst into things. Now, some people choose to, and some people will have a lot of success with that, but you don't have to do that. You can start slowly, and putting one foot in front of the other and just making a little progress every day means a lot. It can be overwhelming, to look at how do you start, your marketing, your website, your finances, your studio, your your clients, your camera, your like all the things. It can be
So
very,
much.
very overwhelming. So you can start slow, and I'm glad that you guys focused on that. And I do like how you said the integration, Darren. I think that's really good because there is a huge focus right now on work-life balance, and really, what is that?
Right.
What is that?
I happen to know that you guys have been on a whirlwind, travel for the month of July, and that's fantastic. It's hot as heck where, you call home. Let's just get out of here and go do some traveling, and that's awesome that you can do that. So we had a really good conversation a couple weeks ago leading up to your visit today of talking about what we were going to discuss on the live. And one of the things that I really honed in on, and I liked how you started off our conversation that day, and I'm gonna go there to begin with. Tell us in your words, and let's start with Lisa, if that's all right. What does a solid business foundation look like? Like, if you are speaking to somebody who is considering going into business for themselves, what does that foundation that if you could go back 17 years, knowing now, or knowing then what you know now, what does that look like? How do you build that block? Not to put you on the spot or anything.
Ooh, goodness. So the things that I have realized in the last few years as I've been working with a few photographers in just throwing out ideas and brainstorming on growing their businesses, I have realized the most important thing is like researching, like talking with people who do successful businesses. This is going way back, but there was a few of us who started a cheerleading gym, and what my partner and I did was we actually flew to San Diego, and we made our way all the way up California, talking with cheer gyms and owners and trying to figure out, like, is it possible, or what do we need to do? We're trying to do that research. I'm a huge advocate of just like connecting and talking with people and learning.
Yep.
So I think because of something that happened to us at a conference we went to, it was almost like people give you the permission to charge this or do this, or now I even say to people, like, you don't have to have the most expensive lights or the best equipment. You can start with this and be actually very successful. So I think it's just connecting with people and truly just having the information and almost just like somebody else's confidence in you to go forward.
Right.
So it's information,
Yeah.
I think.
And I like how you said that about permission, and I think that also transcends into you're working with your clients and showing them products and giving them permission to dream about that large wall grouping or that beautiful album. Like it's the permission sometimes we need, or that reassurance, like, yeah, this is cool, let's do this.
Yeah.
And we're very blessed in photography that we are a very sharing community. You guys go to tons of conferences. We've seen you at many of them, and the amount of education and discussion that happens after hours,
Right.
is there's no value you can put on that. There's so much available to us now, and it's good to hear you say that. I thought you were going to go a much more technical direction, but I'm glad that you went more personal, because that really is true. And sometimes that technical stuff is overwhelming.
Right.
To be able to
Especially
sit down,
in photography.
Yeah, to be able to sit down, and have dinner or a cocktail with somebody for a couple hours and just talk. There's so much that can come from that. So for those of you that are watching along that haven't been in person to a conference, go to one.
Go, yeah.
Definitely.
That's
go to
exactly what happened to us.
Yep.
Someone literally said, I want you to stop working, or I feel like you can stop, or they had belief in us to stop working your full-time job. Make a goal, a year or 2 years, but they're like, we believe you can do it. And so that's where we're like, okay, we can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he told me at a bar. he said, you need to get her into photography full time. Get her out of her other job tomorrow.
Thanks,
Yeah.
George.
Thanks, George.
Yeah, and definitely, and I know that can be a scary experience.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But when you have to buy groceries, and you have the mortgage coming up, you have to succeed.
Yep.
You find a way to make it happen.
You find a way,
Yep.
exactly. And putting in those 15, 16, 18-hour days, sometimes you have to cut your teeth that way,
Yep.
you know, but then you're at a point in your life now, 17 years later, where you can take July off.
Right.
Exactly.
and go have fun. And also, my next question, you already kind of touched on this. I was going to ask, you know, does that foundation look the same outside of photography as it does inside? And, you know, you related to your cheer gym. So really, like, knowledge and research.
Yes.
And, you know, developing, you know, taking 6 people's ideas and funneling it into your own, you know. Yeah, I like that idea. So, again, in our discussion, and I'm going to quote you here, because I typed it out really fast. Yep, it's a good one. You said, "It is not about money, it's about motivation." And, you know, I'm lucky enough here in my position at White House where I talk to hundreds of photographers, you know, and there's sometimes where a person gets to a place where you're really comfortable, you know, and business has been, quote unquote, kind of easy. You know, and then all of a sudden, you know, something changes, or technology changes, or a competitor changes, or something like that. How do you, if money's not the motivator, what are the motivations that can come from that? Like, can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, okay, so I believe everybody has to find their thing or things that motivate them. And that's kind of why you have to tailor that. But for me, I don't personally think that like money is a motivation. It's getting to that and checking it off my list, or scratching it off my whiteboard, or it's the process of doing that and achieving that to me is like, yes. So money or the numbers, like I say, I mean, obviously money is a motivation. It's not like I have to get to $1 million or whatever it is, but it's the achievement of that for me. I've always been, you know, I'm going to have this list of things to do. I'm going to check it off my list. It's so satisfying to me.
It truly is.
Yeah.
To put a hash mark through feels so good.
I know. Whether it's a piece of paper, which I have like 10 different, and I know people are, if they're going to hear this, they're going to go, yep, that's her. But I have like 10 different methods. I have notes. I have reminders. I have papers, I have
Whiteboards.
sticky notes, but somehow it's organized. But I love like crumpling up the paper, throwing it away, checking off my list, saying, Siri, that's done, you know, whatever. So yeah, for me it is the process. And then achieving that for me is, I love it. So it's very addicting. And so yes, money, I have the money goals, but it is definitely the process.
Yes, definitely. And another thing that you said, and I thought that this was cool, you said, you know, you have to have goals, but do you even know what that goal is? Or is it even attainable?
Right.
You know, and the way that you answer that on that call that day was you have to know your numbers, you have to know your data before you can set a goal, because it makes no sense to set a goal if you can't get there. You know, what's the point of that? So I don't mean to be leaving you out of the conversation, but you can just hang out over there for a minute. So another fun quote you had was that you said that you psychotically analyze your data. So
I knew we were getting to this.
and I love that. So let's go back and talk about like what the word goal really means. And then also like a push goal or a stretch goal, because you guys do that.
Yes.
And within a small business, that is not a common practice. Like we talk about push goals, stretch goals, you know, higher level, but in a smaller business, that's rare. And to talk about pipelines and goals and stretch and all that stuff, what is a goal? Like how do you begin that process?
Okay, so you have to know some foundational, some basic information in order to even set your goals. This past January, we taught a class in our studio to photographers, and it was about goal setting. But one of the first things we did in the class was to like rename the word goal, because the word goal seems a little bit overused, in my opinion.
I would agree.
But projections, you know, we came up with a lot of really cool words, but you talk about like at the beginning of the year, people set, you know, different things they want to do with that year. I just feel like it's overused, so you have to figure out like what it is. But I think writing them down, having information to be able to set your numbers. Now in photography, it's very specific. I feel like the things that I teach, I even had somebody in our class that was not a photographer, but she was starting her own business, and she was like, I learned so much. I'm like, oh, I'm so glad, because as much as I was teaching photographers, it really was about information. It's about knowing your numbers enough, or knowing your cost of goods and how much time it takes you to do certain things in order to actually just set your numbers. It's like setting the number of sessions, how much money you want to make, but it has to be realistic. For me, I have a lot of different numbers and spreadsheets, and yes, I'm psychotic about tracking them, because on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, I need to be able to know where I'm at, what I'm about to do for the month, in order to be able to make adjustments, because I know I'm going to be a little disappointed at the end of the month, or whenever the time frame is, if I don't reach those. It also allows me to be able to make some adjustments to get to that.
Right.
So.
And if you are analyzing your numbers on a daily, weekly, bi-monthly, monthly, it gives you the opportunity to make adjustments.
Right.
Or to push harder.
Yes.
If you wait until the end of the year and go, well, too late now.
Right.
I guess there's always next year.
Yeah.
What is your advice to somebody that is watching this, that just looked at their shoes and went, yep, that's what I do? Like, how do you make that adjustment, and start that process? Because again, that can be overwhelming, especially to a right brain artist, mentality.
Yeah.
How do you begin?
Well, so for some people that are doing a creative-based, service-oriented, maybe you don't have a goal of like making so much money or having it be an official business. I don't know. I'm always kind of curious where somebody's thought process is on that, because some people just don't want it as a business. They want more of a casual hobby situation. For me, I want to make money, and I want to be able to have it support the family and have it be something that I can do and also live off of,
Right. Yep.
So for me, I do believe that you need to know all the foundational things. You can take that from any business, any successful business, small, medium, or large, and be able to apply that. So it's all the same things. It just happens to be in photography: cost of doing business, cost of goods. You need to know that. You need to know how much time you take, how much your time you value, how much money you want to make, and then those are all numbers that are plugged in. So it's actually quite simple. It doesn't have to be overwhelming.
Right. So before we go on, and this is a great discussion, I just want to remind people that are watching along, if you do have questions at all, make sure and put them in the chat. If you're watching on the rewind, add them as well. We will get you guys to answer them. So my next question, when you're doing that, Lisa, and for both of you, do you look at the end and then work backwards from there? Say, this is my X dollar goal for the year, and then fill in what you need to do? Or do you do it the opposite way and build it from the beginning and develop your goal for the end?
So when we first started, we kind of just threw a number out there. Like, we kind of want to or need to make this. And so that was like our first thing. Like, let's do this chunk of money, and now let's split it up. And we kind of try to divide it over 12 months and then figure out how many sessions we could do, that kind of thing. And we were developing our averages at that time.
Okay. And at that time, too, we weren't depending on it full time either. So our goal, benchmark, choose your word there, was a little different. Of course, that's changed as our journey has gone on for 17 years now, almost 17 years now.
Yeah.
And so we kind of started one way, and now it's morphed as the needs have changed to a different method.
So now it's the other way.
And then out of your businesses, did the studio come first?
Barely, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
They're both about the same, but
Kind of, sort of?
by less than a
Yes.
year.
Okay.
Yeah.
By less than a year. All while working full time.
We were transitioning
Somebody
out of it,
transitioning to somebody else.
Yeah.
Did you sleep?
Some.
Some. Probably not
Eating
enough.
is
Probably
optional.
So we talked about a lot of different time intervals of how you should look at your numbers or how you could. What do you actually do?
With like looking at the numbers, reviewing.
Like, how often do you make adjustments or look at your numbers?
Okay, so my spreadsheet never
I love how
closes.
this. I love how this starts with like a disclaimer.
Right?
Oh my goodness. So yeah, my spreadsheet's on. It's the open tab all the time.
Okay.
Unless I have to restart my computer. But so no, it's always up.
Okay.
So the way, because he does all of the accounting and has that like in his office, which is not in our studio. My spreadsheet, because of our high school senior situation, the fiscal year, those, and my year, those are different things.
Yep.
So my spreadsheets are very much based on the type of session. So when I order an album and I put that number into the cost of goods. So my spreadsheets are very specific. I know at any
By
point,
session,
by
client,
session,
like
by client,
Okay.
the spreadsheets they all do my averages. I've had all the calculations. I don't need to do anything, so I plug in a number.
Okay.
So they're all, so when I say they all feed into my last spreadsheet that has my budgets and the totals and how far I am from my overall. So I know it all.
I don't doubt that.
So
for a
daily
second.
is the answer.
Daily is the easy answer.
But it goes back to what you said a few minutes ago, though. By knowing, and it's any business, whether it's the photography studio or our other business, knowledge is power. And the more intricately you know those numbers and you know that data and you study that data, and with her looking at it on a daily basis, she can look at it and say, okay, it's April, I'm tracking by the end of June, where I know I can take off basically the month of July, and it just happens to be a slow time with our other business as well. It's kind of nice how that syncs up, fortunately, and allow us to go do family vacation, go visit family, fly up to visit with you guys today, and things like that, and not have to be stressed over we've got to get back because we've got to get more money in the bank, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, it also allows you, when you know that, because now is the time that I do my numbers for next year, because July 31st is the end of my year. Yep. So now I'm like, okay, do I need to do more seniors? Do I need to do less? There's always things like COVID or other factors. In our area, we had 7 weeks of rain during the spring when I had like 21 seniors I had to finish, and that was very challenging. So that's why my May was ridiculous. Yeah. And so I knew in January, for just an example, that I was X thousands of dollars under where I should have been, but I also knew that many of my seniors were coming in the spring. Yeah. So like when I taught the class, I was like, I gotta make up, but I'm not stressed because I know I already have my seniors in place, Yep. So if you don't know those numbers and you're just floating along, in my opinion, I don't know.
Yeah.
That would stress me out.
Yeah, absolutely. That can cause all kinds of stress, definitely. So you guys obviously are, quote unquote, in love with your numbers. You love the comfort of that.
Correct.
Where I think the vast majority of artists and business owners would be like, ooh, when it comes to that stuff. How did that occur? What was the aha moment where you guys were like, oh, bing, right, this is the path? Like, how did that occur for you?
We know the spot.
I know it too, but they don't.
I know. No, okay, so this is another thing I always encourage people to connect with others. So we went to a conference after dark, and I actually think it might have been I know it was in St. Louis. We were sitting in one of the classes, and I was literally sitting on the carpet on the floor because we had so many classes, there were like little pods. I was sitting on the floor, and Kathy Holcomb was teaching a class, and it was on PPA and your numbers, and she had these sheets, which I still have them in my bag. I brought them, but she gave us the spreadsheets, the numbers, the percentages, and she was very honest with what they do, what she did, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can do this. And I loved math, but I'm not like a math genius or anything, but it just made so much sense. But that literally that night we went, and I was like, okay, so we want to make this much money. We did this, we put this at the top of the thing, we've spread it all out, we did all of our numbers, and I mean, that was it. I still have those from 2008, 2000,
Somewhere
whenever we
8,
started.
9.
Again,
Yeah,
the
early
importance of attending
Yeah.
and talking and learning,
Yeah.
from people in person.
Yeah, it was huge.
Yeah, definitely. So Darren, let's shift over to you for a minute.
Okay.
On the call, you said that one of the most important things is to be adaptable in business, and you were very adamant about that. How has that affected both of your businesses with you guys being able to adapt and change? Obviously, Lisa is very passionate about her spreadsheet, and I like this psychotically. That's fantastic. But to be able to look at that and adapt and have you understand that and speak that same language, like how has that really helped you guys grow in both the businesses?
Well, the other business that we have is I think we've just been incredibly blessed with. It's taken on a life of its own. It was kind of a unique business in our area. No real close competition, and I think we came in at the perfect time. It was the perfect storm, and it's grown organically. And honestly, it's truly been a blessing because little effort has gone into making it grow. It just has. It's all been word of mouth.
Yep.
And with photography, kind of the same thing. But being adaptable, Lisa mentioned earlier that she had to, in order for her to do more to get to those goal numbers, that she needed to do more sessions when I wasn't going to have the time to be able to do it. She had to be adaptable to learn more, take on more, and it's kind of just naturally evolved with both businesses. As the second business has pulled me away from the studio, she's been able to fill in the gaps. And you have to be adaptable. Business every day is different. As a business owner, most small business owners would agree to that, I think. And then we're all thrown, regardless of the business. We're thrown the pandemic a few years ago.
Right.
It was adapt or you're done, pretty much.
Yeah.
And so you've just got to constantly be evolving, constantly be open to change. A lot of people don't like change, but I think to be successful in business, you've got to be.
Yeah.
You've got to be adaptable. You've got to be open to change and be able to recognize when change is needed.
Yeah, you definitely need to be able to read the room.
Right.
Well, you have to have the analysis in order to be
Right.
adaptable and know
Yeah.
where you're going to have to move. So
Exactly, and that's being adaptable with knowledge is very different than being adapting because you think
Right.
this is what we need to do, or your emotion takes over and you had one person that challenged or didn't like something or said you were too expensive or whatever that may be, then all of a sudden you're on your heels and making these dangerous choices without any background knowledge
That's
to
why
go.
I love the
Much less
24-hour
stressful.
rule. It's kind of like if you have a bad review or a negative interchange with a client, as a business owner, it's not always the best to give that initial let emotion drive the response.
Right.
Take 24 hours, sit back, put it over on the side,
Okay.
analyze it, know it, get the knowledge, and then come back. Because almost every time I'd be willing to bet that your response is going to be different 24 hours later than it would have been initially.
Yeah.
And it's kind of that same approach, I think, for me for business is, sit back,
think about it.
Yeah.
and then act.
That, for anybody following along today, that little last couple of minutes is worth this whole thing, because that's an excellent rule. And that some of these things that should be like so simple, and so common sense, it's good to hear that, like, don't react, like, think about it, make your decisions, make your choices from a place of knowledge instead of, I think this might be what I need to do. That's a dangerous thing to do. So in the world of data and numbers and spreadsheets and whiteboards and Post-it notes, and look at your smile. Jeez Louise.
Glowing now, you're talking her language. Right?
You and Ed that works here would be great friends. A lot of people look at that as completely black and white. Do you guys see it that way? Or do you think that there's some gray in there?
There's a lot of gray.
Okay.
So kind of just reverting for a second back to the goal situation, I think your business model, your, what do they call them? The mantra, your what is
Mission
the word?
statement.
Mission statement, that kind of thing. Your goals can all go back and relate to that. But goals in general I think you can be most successful when the goals are a little bit more subjective. Because then if you say, okay, so I want to be healthier instead of I want to lose 10 pounds. If you're feeling a bit healthier, you've achieved that. Whereas maybe losing 10 pounds, you get to 9 or 8 and you've failed, right? So goals can be subjective, which I like. Numbers, you might think they would be black and white, but I truly believe they can shift and be sort of more liquid. And that way, so for example, if I want X number of seniors that's going to produce this much revenue, and then all of a sudden I have a big influx of family, well, I can go, you know what, I can shift my numbers or my focus or a little bit of my first quarter to families and still achieve the same goals. Because for me, again, in my spreadsheet, when I've achieved, it goes like highlights, highlights. And so for me right now, if I think about my spreadsheet, I know that 75% of my categories I've already achieved. And I'm not there with 2 of my categories. But I know that I have blown out of the water the other ones, so it doesn't really matter. So that's where I think the black and white for some people would be like, oh gosh, I didn't reach those 2. Well, for me, it doesn't matter because I've already way over, achieved in the others. So it just kind of fills in. Yeah. And that's where I think the gray is okay. You can give yourself permission as much as you want to stick with those and be successful. You can also be successful in other ways.
Right. And it's basically just kind of a shifting.
Yeah, it just shifts. And you can shift them or just know that you're good still because your overall is good. So I do think it is a little bit of a gray.
Yeah,
it can be gray.
Totally.
And it goes back again, it's all rooted in knowing the data, knowing the numbers. And we hear that a lot in the photography industry, but it really is true. And if you know that, and you're able to adjust, able to move through that gray and still achieve the end result at the end of the day.
Yeah. So with this type of knowledge, and I know that you've done some teaching and hosted classes and stuff, what are other resources that are out there? Like you had Kathy, at After Dark. Like if somebody's listening along and they really want to do this, but they don't really know where to start, what are some of those resources that you could recommend? Do you have anything off the top of your head?
So I, a lot of times, like to go outside of your industry.
Okay.
So anybody that you know that has a successful business, go speak with them. Typically, entrepreneurs or other successful people will be willing to share. Okay. And it would be, in my opinion, also less, if there is somebody that you know who might also be a photographer, if they think that it might be a little bit of conflict or you might be a little bit of a competition, I would say if you go outside to somebody else, then do it. I found a lot of information from colleges and universities and professors who do the business classes. There's lots of resources online, but I've found really good sort of worksheets on cost of doing business and cost of goods, and just being able to sort of morph those workable for photography.
And if a person is starting that process and really trying to wrap their head around their data, what percentage of your time could you expect to devote to that? Because we're busy. I think I saw something online the other day that for every hour that a photographer is behind the camera, there's 9 hours.
I saw that as well.
That people don't see, and that was staggering. I'm like, wow, that's incredible. When you think about a 10-hour wedding.
Right.
So we all have a lot going on, but if you are going to wrap your head around it and be very analytical, what's the extra time investment in that, and how long does that kind of take to get part of your routine?
So I usually at the beginning I was kind of doing a lot with numbers, and then I feel like if you're adjusting your pricing to better accommodate your number goals, then that's going to take more time, because like when White House has adjustments in their prices, all my spreadsheets have to be then different, so I might have to then increase prices or packages or whatever. So that takes a little bit more time if I'm analyzing that. But if I am just doing new number goals, I have last year's to just be able to make adjustments. So right now as I'm doing it, it probably would take me 2 hours. But if anybody No.
Or just to get started?
Just for the everything and the
Okay.
whole year next year, because
Okay.
I already have everything in place.
You're an overachiever.
What? No, but if anybody needs worksheets or helps, like that's one of the things that I would love to just like send you my stuff,
Oh,
you know?
fantastic.
So if anybody is interested in doing that, it is.
That's a huge gift.
People that know me or I've shared that information know that I'm like willing and I love to just help. So I mean, I've done the work. Why not just like give it, you know?
No, that's
so.
fantastic. So, funny thing, when we were talking, you said that one of you was reading a Costco magazine.
Yeah.
And what did you call it here? Did you know that Sunday was National What I Forgot Day?
National I Forgot Day.
I Forgot Day.
July
Yeah.
2nd.
Yeah, I love that. And then how did you take that funny little tidbit of information and turn that into profit at your studio?
Okay, can I share first
I
and
think
then you go?
I think I read the article
Well,
and
'cause
flipped to the magazine.
okay, wait, this is us, this is all the time. Okay, so I had just on June 30th finished a whole like 6 weeks of our dance ordering, okay, for all of our dance studios. And of course, at midnight, the dance ordering closed. At 2 a.m., I started getting emails. I forgot, can you reopen? And I was like, I just gave you like 6 weeks, right? So
That never happens, does
Never.
it?
never, not with everything that I gave reminders and everything. So I was like, oh shoot, I don't want to miss another order. But I was pretty hard and fast on it. I was like, I've got to come to a point where I'm finishing. So anyway, I go home Saturday night. It was like, I don't know, 10 o'clock. I was like, hey, we just got a Costco magazine. I'm going to be in Raleigh. We'll go shopping next month. Can you just read this and tell me if there's any specials, right? And I'm still working. And so go, you can tell your Costco magazine story.
So I'm thumbing through the pages, just looking. You know, they often have some good articles in those in the Costco magazine as well. And I don't even remember. I just remember reading the headline that said July 2nd. I think I may have even made a joke about it because
You
our
did.
anniversary is on the 3rd.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I'm like, I'm so glad this is not on July 3rd, or maybe it should be July 3rd, and then I have an excuse. But,
Right.
but no, I was like, did you know July 2nd was, I mean, there's a day for everything now, right?
Yeah.
So it's National I
Forgot
Forgot
Day.
Day. And she's like, ooh, I need that. And so immediately
So we
snatches
ripped
the
it out.
and rips it out of the page.
Yes. And so I was like, oh my gosh, that's such a perfect opportunity. So on Sunday morning, which was National I Forgot Day, July 2nd, I sent an email out to all of the people that had not ordered for dance, all of our dance studios. And I said, this is your lucky day. It's National I Forgot Day. And so you get to now order. If you haven't, you have 2 days. And I put in the email like a whole thing, like we're celebrating today, National I Forgot Day, tomorrow, Darren, and my anniversary, and then July 4th on Tuesday.
Right.
I said, so here's your last reminder. And in my head, I was like, okay, so if we just, I'm not even gonna say the number, I was like, if we just get another blankety blank thousands of dollars of orders, I was like, I'm gonna be so happy. And so I'd already reached my goal for most of the studios, so I was like, well, maybe that one could go over our, goal. Anyway, that's always,
yeah.
But anyway, it was very fun. But it was an opportunity.
Yep, and it worked.
It worked.
I was going to
totally
say, very
worked.
fun and
worked,
very
yeah.
successful.
But can I also say that what happens with goals, and this is what I find is almost like a trick for myself, but if you don't know your numbers and where you want to be and where they are at for anything, I wouldn't have made that extra push. Or if you put something out in the universe, I'm a firm believer that it somehow in some shape, form, or fashion comes to you.
Yep.
So if I wouldn't have thought, okay, I really wanted to get to X dollars, let me say yes to this one more person who needs to order, or let me try to figure out how to do one last push. I would have just gone on to my next crazy week,
Yep.
And I think that just gives you one more little bump, and I just think it's important.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, absolutely. That's a fantastic point. And it actually brings me to my next highlighted question here. But that's very, very true. Like if you have a goal for your month and you're, X dollars short, I'm sure that just burns in your mind. Like how am I going to close that gap? Because I don't want to start my next month without hitting my goal from the previous one, you know,
Right.
and how do we do that? And what a fun way to do it, you know,
Right.
what a great idea, you know, to design an email and send it out and have it be successful. I mean, it's brilliant.
Well, I always look inward too, like, why didn't that work? Like, it might be something that you did or you didn't do, or how can I make that better next year for the client? Is my photography needing a little bit, you know, refurbishing? Like what is it particularly that made it so that was not? And for me, I know my numbers so well, and I know my averages, that I'm like, why didn't I get there? Because that seems to be like that should have happened, you know?
Yep, totally.
So then I think, okay, how can I adjust
Yeah.
to make it work?
That's
So.
awesome. Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so do you, as a couple and as a business owner, have a yes attitude and mentality?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and I want to preface that question a little bit too, because, you know, we hear from the platform, you know, you don't want to do everything. You want to specialize. But what you're talking about is different than that. You're not necessarily saying yes to everything, but you're saying yes to take it away.
My way.
Your way. Okay.
Yes, my
Fill
way.
us in on that.
Well, for me, that's a short answer. 20 years ago, I figured out really quick, yes, her way. The rest is history.
And she's so little and nice, Darren. Right.
But it works.
Yeah.
That works, and her way works as well.
Well, I just, and behind the scenes, we all have our moments, and I have people in my studio that I'm so thankful for them, that they see that I'm not always a yes person, you know. We all have our moments, but when my initial knee jerk for some things is no, and for me it's no, not yet, or when I started to do, or really wanted to do, and had been getting requests for like pageant headshots or something, I was like, I do not want to do them until I'm ready, and I'm gonna be very good at them. So I'm like a no, not yet, but I'm like, yes, my way, or yes, how can I do it? If someone says, oh, will you do this, or can you do this, or do you do this, or, you know, can I get this in an order? And pretty much hard and fast, no. But I don't say no. I'm like, yes, let me figure out how to say yes, or let me figure out how to do it, or this is what I do, let me try to bring you in my way. That,
Right.
you know, I know that sounds kind of weird, but
So not giving up your not your morals, but your stand. You're figuring out a way to make it work for the client in a way that still benefits you as a business.
yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with pricing. You know, we have people who say, like, people just keep saying that, you know, it's too expensive, or I was like, yes, but you can figure out still a way to do that. Maybe it's your sales approach, or maybe it's not your pricing, or whatever it is, like, figure out how to say yes to somebody, or how they'll say yes to you, you know.
Yeah.
I just think that's important to try to, like, figure it out. But I
Fantastic.
try to say yes to as many things as possible.
Yeah,
Not doing different types of photography, but just like, yes, how can I do that?
Right. Because in the whole experience of your studio, and in, you know, what we do, we would like good experiences. We will come back to good experiences. You know, and if you hit that hard no, you know, at points with people, you know, you really, it can be a devastating thing, you know, because you don't know where that connection could potentially go, you know.
Right.
And if you say yes your way, I like that. You know, that's another really good tidbit of information for people that are watching along here. So, well, this has been fantastic to have you guys here, and 45 minutes goes by like that. Yeah.
It does.
Yes. So remember, everybody that was listening along here with us today, and if you're watching the rewind of this, make sure and put any questions you would have into the chat. I will grab that spreadsheet from you, because I'm sure people will want to see that. That's an awesome offer, and thank you for doing that. We really appreciate having you guys here today. So before we go, make sure, and if you haven't hit the subscribe button on the WHCC YouTube, to do that while you're looking at it today. Follow along on Instagram at WHCC Pro, and for all of your product questions, sizing, options, all that kind of stuff, go to WHCC.com. If people want to find you guys online on Instagram, can you give us all your handles and where they can locate you at?
Go for it.
We're at Thompson Photo Design.
Okay.
Thompson Photography design.com.
Okay.
And our actual business name is Thompson Photography Siri says it Thompson Photography plus Design, but it's Thompson, Thompson Photography and Design.
Okay, and then on Instagram, it's
Thompson Photo Design.
perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you guys
Yeah,
for sharing
absolutely.
and for
Thank
being
you.
here.
We appreciate you guys having us, and you know, we love the White House family. I actually looked up how long we had been with you guys, and fortunately, we found you guys pretty early on in our journey, and we're so grateful that we did. And you guys truly are like family, and the customer service is beyond excellent, and the prints and products speak for themselves. So, and thank you for everything that you guys do here at White House.
Absolutely. We appreciate you, and we're glad to have you here. So.
Thank you. Thank
Perfect. All right. Thank you for joining us today, and we will look forward to seeing you for our next event. Enjoy your day.